Welcome to the next episode of the Plugged In podcast. And today we have Evan Floersch. Evan is the co-owner and CEO of Texas Ranchers. Great to have you on the show today, Evan.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
I have to say, obviously, I did a bit of research. I love Texas in particular as a state. I know that in America, every state can look different. Love the fact that you're in sport. I know that you're young as well, and yet that doesn't seem to be stopping you. What has it been really like to own such an up and coming, sport, which, even as a young man, like you were rubbing shoulders against lots of other wealthy individuals. What's that been like? Has it been a bit of a fairy tale?
Well, previously I was in tech and media, Mark. So those are two very different industries, maybe not at the first principle level, but two very different industries and who you interact with in sports. So I would say that's probably the biggest change, and the thing I find most fulfilling with being in sports is the people in sports, not even just the athletes, but also the owners, the brand partners that we have and the people at the community level. They're all incredible people. And that's been probably the thing that I lean on most and what gets me out of bed every single morning, excited to do what I do.
Yeah, it's nice. So as a tech entrepreneur turned sports franchise owner, what role can you see AI and data and analytics play in helping the Texas Ranchers, for example, scale talent or even optimize team performance? Are you guys using that at a grassroots level?
Yeah, I would say there's different ways to chop it up, and we don't need to get deep on each individual way, but where if I was building in the space and wanted to apply AI into sports, and what I've seen also early teams in AI trying to build for this booming market of sports, global sports, really, not even just the US, but there's personalization opportunities. So how do you personalize the fan experience? Yeah. You could do that through AI. You could do AI agents helping your fans better understand and better know who the brand is, who the players are, who the leadership team is, the ownership group, what's going on next week as a way to engage with the team. So there's personalization and fan engagement. There is youth academy and youth development applications as well. Your soccer coach growing up, Mark, was an AI, or your coach was equipped with AI to better coach you as an individual versus the person next to you, and what you needed to learn versus the person next to you. So there's that application, which I find fascinating, especially as I look across what I want to do for Texas and Texas sports is you can't just build at the top. You have to build from the ground up. And so youth sports and the youth academy applications are pretty compelling. And I would say those are the two big ones for me. But there are countless other ways. I mean, I am not a doctor, but what we're seeing in performance as well with AI sensory data on, let's say, first step and reaction times across many different sports. All of those insights are going to greatly change how athletes view their performance and how they're preparing for the game in the season ahead. So those are kind of the three that I would say are, if I was building and looking to build a $100 billion business in sports through AI and AI applications, those are kind of the three that I would look at.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Because I think, AI is here to stay, and it's infiltrated every industry you can think of, even if it isn't a direct support or offering. It obviously, for me, like you, I love sport, right? So there's nothing better than watching a game or playing a game, which has nothing to do with a computer. It's all about being in the moment, all about just embracing the emotional connection and the hype that we all feel go through our body as a spectator or as a participator, right? But then you have all this other information that helps us recruit better, helps us improve, whether we're playing it or watching it. And it's about bringing those two elements together.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's really why I fell in love with pickleball, Mark, after I played college soccer was, this is something you can get those feelings a lot more often playing pickleball. And it hurts me to say that as an ex-soccer player, but it's a lot tougher to find 21 other people to play a soccer match against versus finding 3 other people to play pickleball or one other person to play singles pickleball. So that's really kind of the catalyst for why I chose to pick up pickleball as a recreational player, and then fell in love with it, got addicted to it saw the business opportunity and chose to dive, head first into the sport in the entire category.
Why are you on a personal mission, Evan, to redefine sports? What is it about sport and the way it's been done, and what is it about you wanting to change that?
It's going to sound crazy saying this right now, but I think in 10 years, everyone will be saying this. I see sports and the opportunity in sports similar to, how Disney maybe saw animation. What I mean by that is, he wasn't really just creating cartoons. He was creating these different worlds for the viewer to really step into. And, that company is great, not because of what Disney did with the animations, but what the business did around those worlds that they built. And so you've got characters, and that is analogous to, in my opinion, our athletes and the stories that we tell. There's a totally different story going on at the Indiana Fever with Caitlin Clark than, I don't know, the Dallas Cowboys, for example, in our backyard. Those are two very different stories, but ownership groups and leadership teams need to, the way I view it is, how do we tell the most compelling story over 5 to 10 years? And that story can be an incredible story, or that story can be a really bad story. Disney told great stories, of course, and that's why they are who they are. They're incredible storytellers. But using that frame, that mental model, Mark, is how I think about the next 10, 20, 30 years of sports is, where are there stories to be told, and how do we vertically integrate from owning the theme parks, aka the stadiums and the venues, the sporting districts around the players and the stories? How do we own the platform layer? So ESPN and ABC Sports are owned by Disney. They own that platform. They own the content they distribute and Disney Plus, of course, they own the content they distribute to their fans and their customers. We can do the same thing. So I really look at it like, let's buy the property first. Let's build from the ground up, build a new venue, build a sporting district around the venue for fans to experience, and build a platform layer. And then, invest in the people that you have, because that's really who the stories revolve around in sports. So that's kind of how I hope to redefine sports. I think there's a vertically integration opportunity, and our business is going to look a lot more like Disney than a mere sports asset that we've seen previously, which has historically been a trophy asset owned by a wealthy individual, and that's that. He or she wanted a seat at the table or love the sport passionately. I think there's a way bigger business opportunity, and that's why you see folks like Mark Walters buying the Lakers in the NBA for $10 billion, because I think other people see it as well.
I think closer to home in the UK, I'm thinking about Wrexham and Ryan Reynolds. Are you familiar with what they've been doing? Obviously with the documentary on Netflix, and then like you're saying about storytelling, building a community. Is that the sort of like blueprint as well that kind of really adds into what you're feeling?
You need to be able to tell that story and amplify that story, and through his influence, his platform, and then obviously his connections and striking a deal with FX to distribute that content, it's done wonders. And I think, let me ask you this, Mark: are you fond of Wrexham? Are you a fan of Wrexham and the stories they're telling, or you can't really say that publicly?
Oh, I mean, I can say anything publicly on that. I mean, my team are in that league.
Okay.
We haven't played them yet. I think I like seeing them go from like a certain level, and now they're in the level that my team are in. So there's more emotion in there, and obviously
Right.
I'm seeing how they're doing that. There's a part of you inside that wants them to fail and mess up, because I think that's within
Yep.
us anyway. I mean, sport anyway as a concept it's competition, isn't it? So it's almost like, it's not where I'd take it to the nth degree and want someone to really hurt themselves, but for them to like actually end up getting relegated again would be rather humorous.
Yeah. But here's the thing. We pay attention to Wrexham because they're winning, because they've been promoted, what is it, twice now? And which is historic. I mean, if you don't have a winning, and that's the part that I forgot to mention, is we're not just doing this to tell stories and get fans to show up at our stadiums. We're doing this to win as well. I mean, if you're not in this to win, and if Ryan Reynolds and his team there are not winning, that story is a lot less interesting to the broader public than what he's done. So I think, just like I said, the story is very different for the Dallas Cowboys than the Indiana Fever with Caitlin Clark. It's a very different story than the Kansas City Chiefs right now,
Right.
who have created a dynasty. And I grew up in Chicago, Mark. So grew up going to 2 million plus person championship parades when the Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup. That is
Wow.
a town that absolutely loves sports, loves their teams, and shows up for their teams. That doesn't exist here in Austin. And so when I looked around Austin and saw they really just had the University of Texas and then a budding MLS team with Austin FC, who are incredible, by the way, and that organization is remarkable in what they've done for the city. But there has been no championship parade, and there has been no connection, no identity, no attachment to sports and community in this market, despite it being one of the fastest growing markets in the U.S. So that really is what it comes down to, and why I do this, because I want my kids and my kids' kids to experience that championship parade and that connection to their city that I did growing up.
I love that. And I love that you're bringing all the elements together, right? The technology, the leadership, the sport, and the sense of community. Because I think, there's a lot of people that do go to church, especially in America. But then for a lot of people, supporting their sports team is their church. It's where they go to belong.
Yeah, most definitely. I think it is the great equalizer, and it can, at the best case scenario, it can connect to conflicting nations, Mark, or at least for a moment in time, like we see sometimes in the World Cup, or it can inspire the next generation. Like I don't know if you saw Shea Gilgeous-Alexander on the Oklahoma City Thunder; they just won the championship. He said he was inspired by Vince Carter in Canada growing up. Of course, you don't see that when you're watching Vince Carter play, but you see it when you hear 15 plus years later, this kid now who's the MVP of the NBA saying he was inspired by this athlete that we know and we watched. So that's the kind of impact that sports can have at its greatest moments.
And Evan, you're spoiled as well, because my favorite two cities in America that I've visited, and obviously I haven't visited every state or every city, but I've been to 15 states, and but my favorite two actually are Chicago and Austin, and you lived in one and you live in the other.
Yes, yeah, I've been fortunate. My family's all still back in Chicago, but growing up in that town and my upbringing around youth sports, and now the blank canvas that I feel fortunate to have here in Austin and building up the sports market here. I feel incredibly lucky every day to be both product of where I grew up and then where I'm at currently.
In terms of the Texas Ranchers collective ownership, because there's obviously a team of you, looking at that model, when I'm thinking about your model, how are you guys changing the future of leadership and collaboration within sports and business?
So as I kind of laid out previously, or briefly touched on, sports have historically been a trophy asset. Oftentimes a play and investment that's driven by ego. So-and-so wants to have a seat at the table. There is also many investment benefits, especially in the US with our tax code, to owning sports teams. But I think similar to how I view what we're building as a startup akin to the early days of Disney, you need the right people around the table. And I think in order to do that, you could do that by hiring an incredible leadership team. But I think a way to even further supercharge that growth is to, at day zero, surround that ownership group with people who all bring something different, unique, and special to the franchise, the sports property that you're building. So we were intentional and we handpicked individuals who we felt if we got them to invest alongside of us here, we could become the highest grossing, most valuable team in Major League Pickleball, as we believe the sport is going to become a global sport and Olympic sport. So, for someone like Lil Wayne, who cares a lot about fashion, we're dropping a merchandise collection with him around Black Friday this year. He cares a lot about fashion, and that's super important to find something that they care about rather than having them show up and engage in ways that don't really connect with them. But for someone like Myles Garrett and Bijan Robinson, they care a lot about connecting with Texas communities and so we're building courts with them in some of the underserved communities around Texas. So I would say everyone brings something different to the table. The common thread, Mark, they all love pickleball, and that's super important. You don't want to have people that don't want to show up for work that day. And I think that's what has really led to our success was, first, you got to love pickleball. Second, what are you willing to do to lean in to not just be a name on a press release, but to actually care about the property that we're building, the trajectory that we're on. Ryan Reynolds, great example. there are plenty of U.S. folks who own sports teams overseas in England, as you know, Mark. And I don't think you could put anyone above Ryan Reynolds in terms of how much they care about that community and they care about that team.
Yeah, I would agree. He's likable. It's just that when I play Wrexham, I'm going to boo him.
That's okay.
The last question I have for you, I'm just curious. I'm either going to set you up and you'll have to pay me later for this one. Why is championing equal visibility for women so important to you?
That's a great question. I mean, selfishly, I grew up with, or not selfishly, but personally, I grew up with 3 sisters, and I saw the impact that sports could have on them. And, you know, you look around the table or at the market today, there aren't many opportunities, or there haven't been many opportunities for women's sports. It's getting really incredible, the kind of growth and the investment behind women's sports, but that's all there is to it in my mind, Mark. I think why not? Why do you have, similar to the analogy I used with Disney? Why can't you have a really compelling story like Moana, just like you can have Mickey Mouse, right? Just because it's a woman playing the sport doesn't mean the story is any less interesting. The investment behind that sport has just been the thing that's lacking. So that's kind of how I see the opportunity, is to uplift women, invest in women, because they have stories to tell, they have championships to win, and they can really connect just as well as men do in men's sports, connect with the community that they're in and that they're playing for. So that's the opportunity I see. I don't really see many obstacles outside of the lack of investment there has been thus far, but there are tailwinds in women's sports that I'm excited to be a part of and also continue to champion.
Amazing. Do you have one final thought that you want to share with us, just to leave us with before we bring this into land?
Not really. I'm trying to think of what is on my mind, but you know, I think what I'll say that here is, Mark, if you're a parent, get your kids in sports. Mark, you've seen the impact that it's had on you being a part of being an athlete yourself. I've seen the impact it's had on me. And I think what we're building with Permian Sports Investments is really at its core a cultural OS, a cultural operating system. The world is, and you've seen this with other people that you bring on the show, and what we're seeing in the market of AI, the world is becoming a lot more artificial, which is okay. It is making our minds more efficient and more efficient, intelligent human beings. At the same time, we still need that connection to the soul. And that's what sports and entertainment do so well. And that's really what sports can do for a kid growing up, adults, like we've seen with our connection to our teams, Mark, but also what it can do to inspire the next generation of athletes who can tell incredible stories through their lives and through the play on the court or the field.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's well said. I think that when I reflect on just this conversation, you're looking at all the different parts, the importance of that humanness and the importance of community and the importance of belonging, alongside our ability to be able to use technology to create that emotional connection with fans, and to be able to actually have details and stats in terms of our own improvement and also the improvement of others. Bringing that all together, I think, is, a beautiful thing to see within your own company, the Texas Ranchers. So Evan, it's been really good to have you on today's Plugged In podcast.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
Cheers.